Reflections from Eminent Philosophers on How the Pandemic Has Altered the World. Theodore Susskind. The COVID-19 disaster, according to Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, a prominent figure in British intellectual life, is the closest we have to a revelation for atheists, he said in March 2020. I found the parallel to be appropriate at the moment. It captures the sense of biblical shock that many of us had in the face of such an unexpected, severe, and quickly worsening disaster. Suddenly, he said, we are facing the fragility and vulnerability of the human situation, after coasting along for more than half a century. Several months later, Rabbi Sacks' analogy to Revelation still makes sense, but for a different reason, which is significant when considering the world after COVID-19. This crisis is partly concerning because it includes several novel and unusual characteristics. A virus that has triggered a widespread medical disaster that we still don't fully grasp. As a necessary measure to stop its spread, the economy collapsed. Over time, it has also become apparent that much of what is most upsetting about this crisis isn't anything new. There are striking differences in COVID-19 infections and outcomes that seem to reflect economic inequality. The well-known inability of the market to correctly value what counts results in remarkable discrepancies between the social worth of what essential workers perform and the low compensation they earn. Given a decade of rising populism and waning trust in professionals, the virus's enthusiastic acceptance of misinformation and disinformation was to be expected. And considering the current embrace of my country first global politics, the lack of a fully coordinated international reaction shouldn't have come as a surprise. The crisis, therefore, is a revelation in a much more literal sense since it draws attention to the many inequities and flaws in our current social structure. It is difficult not to perceive these flaws now, even if people were previously blind to them. What kind of world will there be following COVID-19? Many of the issues we will deal with in the upcoming 10 years will be more extreme variations of those we presently face. Only if, as we get out of this crisis, we decide to take action to address these issues and bring about substantial change will the world seem considerably different this time. Monica James. It's unlikely that the world after COVID-19 will ever be like the one before. The epidemic's impact accelerates many tendencies already present in the global economy. With the rise of digital behaviors like healthcare, delivery services, and remote learning and working, this is particularly true of the digital economy. A further expansion of cross-border data flows and the regionalization of supply chains are two more structural shifts that could speed up. The issues of the future of work have accelerated along with it, many of them possibly increasing, including income inequality, worker vulnerability, an increase in gig labor, and the requirement for workers to adjust to changes in their line of work. This acceleration results from increased health and safety regulations and technological advancements, and it will take some time for economies and labor markets to recover and likely change as a result. The crisis realities have caused several ideas to be revisited, which may impact the economy and society's decisions in the long run. These effects range from beliefs about resilience versus efficiency, the future of capitalism, the urbanization of economic activity, industrial policy, and how we approach issues that affect all of us and necessitate global cooperation, like pandemics and climate change, to the function of institutions and the role of government. In sophisticated economies during the past 2 decades, accountability has typically migrated from institutions to people. But although benefits like paid sick leave and universal basic income are being reevaluated, health systems are frequently found wanting. Through safety nets and a more inclusive social contract, institutions may eventually start to support people differently. As history has demonstrated, the world can be changed by decisions made during crises. The need for concerted action to create economies that bring inclusive economic growth, prosperity, and safety for all will continue to be crucial. Jean Saldana. Indian novelist Arundhati Roy states in her book The Pandemic is a portal that pandemics have historically compelled humanity to break with the past and construct their world anew. Nothing special about this one. It serves as a bridge between this world and the next. Multilateralism will need to evolve to accommodate this vastly changed reality. The COVID-19 epidemic has put the limitations of international cooperation to the test. Particularly for developing economies, support is still insufficient. Due to historic capital outflows and tighter financial circumstances, they were among the first countries to be affected by the global economic slump. Due to the largest humanitarian crisis since World War II, these economies face unprecedented pressure on their already constrained fiscal capacity to address severe social and public health requirements. The decisions we make today will have far-reaching effects. Relying on more of the same is unsustainable and ignores the magnitude of pain the pandemic has caused among people. To address the structural issues that have led to debt fragility across developing nations, a suitable UN-led reform program must involve the IMF. Such a plan must divert funding for development away from market-friendly changes and financial inducements for private investment. It must reject the austerity doctrine. Wealthy nations must also fulfill their pledges to provide official development assistance. Power inequalities in international organizations must also be addressed to fairly recognize the interests and rights of 2/3 of the world's population who live in the global south. The 2030 Agenda and the Paris Agreement will be catastrophically derailed if the international community does not act boldly immediately. A new multilateralism is required right now and must be founded on a development vision prioritizing human rights, gender equality, and the environment. Reform of the Bretton Woods institutions will be a fundamental component of this new multilateralism. Burrow, Sharon. After the initial COVID-19 wave, the globe must be more diverse, robust, and sustainable. We now live in a world where working poverty affects a sizable section of the global workforce, corporations compete to offer the lowest prices, and inequality between nations has increased. The COVID-19 external shocks were felt in many countries without adequate social protection or public health systems. While the war was still in progress, the Bretton Woods Conference helped lay the groundwork for a post-war social contract. Likewise, while we try to end the pandemic, we must develop a comprehensive strategy for reconstruction. International cooperation is essential for human survival and is an investment in the future of multilateralism, the global economy, and health. The decision is ours and will be influenced by the IMF's and the multilateral system's actions. Our objectives for economic recovery should be a new social contract and full employment. An economic stimulus that lessens inequality can be built on a foundation of public investment in the care economy, education, and low-carbon infrastructure. In addition to ending wage discrimination, wage policy, collective bargaining, and labor market regulation can boost demand and revenue. The UN Sustainable Development Goals and long-term economic growth for all nations should be the focal points of a debt alleviation strategy. After the global financial crisis, debt management and reduction were made more difficult by fiscal consolidation that lacked vision. This would also make us less prepared to handle future health and economic crises. A COVID-19 world characterized by shared ambition and global solidarity can produce shared wealth. Rebello, Sergio. The effects of COVID-19 will be felt for a long time, affecting the global economy permanently and imparting valuable lessons. Similar to how security measures became commonplace following 9/11, virus screening will become a part of our daily lives. Investing in the infrastructure required to track down